one-week series, one-off sermon called Streak. Last week we talked about New Year, New You, New Year, New You. The week before that, we in our A Light Has Come series, we talked about grace and more, grace and more. And the last 2 weeks, I kind of, maybe it's more than a kind of, I really just grew up on you guys a lot. You know, this last week's sermon was like an hour. I think when we did the thing, it was like an hour long. I felt like I was like TD Jakes. I was like, dang, after I looked at it, I was like, man, that's a long sermon. You know, but there's a lot in there the last 2 weeks. So if you missed any of those 2 weeks, I just encourage you to go to the website and listen to it. I think the week one is actually on the YouTube channel. But go ahead and check it out, because what I'm going to do over the next few months is really unpack some of that stuff. And today's sermon is going to be way more practical than probably what we have done the last 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks was more of just kind of like inspirational, you know, kind of like, hey, this is where we're going. This is what we want to do. When we talked about grace and more, I specifically said that, hey, we're going to come back to these principles, and I'm going to kind of iron them out a little bit more. But I'm going to give you what those points was. When in grace and more, we talked about being faithful. And that's pretty much where we're going to stay at today as we talk about streaks, as we talk about when you pick up a streak in your life, what you're doing is you're making a decision to say, I'm going to be faithful. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to make it work out. And then the second point, remembering grace and more, was being a builder. And we're going to talk about that over the next few months, about what that looks like for you and for what that looks like for your future and where you're going and what you want to see God do. Number 3 was holding on to our confidence. What are you holding on to? And I hope that you're holding on to your confidence in God, not confidence in what you're able to do, but your confidence in God. You know, I could talk about so much about that, but being soft and remaining soft is remaining soft, not allowing the world to harden you up. And when you are a hard person, you are a person that doesn't look for miracles. You don't look for the possibilities of what God can do, because you know, oh, life has just told me that this is what should happen, or this is how I'm supposed to live my life, or this is the response that I'm supposed to have. But when we are in a relationship with God, we need to remain soft. Not soft so that people can come and abuse us and manipulate us. And no, we should remain soft before God. And, you know, the other thing was liking tests, is that we need to be people who like tests. Like, we like tests. Why? Because the test is not just an indicator of what we know, but it is an indicator of what we are able to endure. You know, we talk about quality. When you test software, they test the software not necessarily just to see if it works, but to see if it works to the capacity that they have put on the label of saying that it will do. You know, and then the last thing was no rest is the next. Knowing that rest is the next. The next isn't more just so that you can be busy and you can just be stressed out, but the next is rest. What we're trying to get to is rest. We're not trying to get to so that I can be more stressed out, that I can have more bills, that I can have more of this. No, I'm trying to get to a place of rest, a place of security, a place where, as I'm working on a daily basis, I am building something for my family, for my friends. I'm building something for my community that leads to rest, so that the issues that I have, the next generation doesn't have to deal with those issues, because they're coming from a place of strength, which is a place of rest. When you are in a place of rest, you are rested. How many of you guys have been, you had a hard day's work? And maybe some of you guys don't know this yet, but when you've worked hard on a particular day and you go home, it's not hard for you to go to sleep. What you do is the moment that the lights go out of you, that feel you like just fall out, and you wake up the next morning not feeling as though, oh my goodness, I'm worn out. No, you actually feel like, oh my God, I'm energized in this moment. And that's the way that I believe that God wants us to live, is a place out of knowing rest is our next. Because when you have rest, you have peace. When you have rest, you have strength. When you have rest, you are able to make decisions, not that are decisions that will bind you up and put you in bondage, but there's decisions made from a place of authority, a place of you knowing who you are in God, okay?
Yeah.
So as we talk about today, we're looking at Galatians chapter 5, verse 16 through 26. I'm not going to read it all, but I would encourage you to go back and really just kind of digest this. Because if you ever want to know what are the things that God wants me to do and the things that God doesn't want me to do. Paul actually puts a list together. And if you fall into any of the list of the things that he's saying that God hates, then you can obviously say those are things I need to stop doing. If you look at the list where Paul gives us of things that we should be doing and our focus should be on, and if you're not doing those yet, you can say, man, I need to apply this to my life. I need to make sure that this is where I'm at and this is how I'm living out my life. But in Galatians, it says, it's verse 16, so I say walk by the Spirit. How are we supposed to walk?
By the Spirit.
Now, I did have a video for you guys, but I just couldn't cut it in time because it was some of you already know where I'm going with this, but there was a song that came out during the 90s, I believe, and it was called Walk It Out. Walk it out. Walk it out, walk it out. Yeah, and some of you are right now, if you know the video, I would really have had to kind of chop it up to make it appropriate for our setting, okay? But the whole idea is walking it out, okay? And they had the guys up there, they were dancing, walk it out, walk it out, walk it out. Some of you guys don't know exactly, you don't have a clue of what I'm talking about. But everybody that does, y'all know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? You're like, walk it out, walk it out, walk it out, walk it out. But I believe that's the message in which Paul is trying to convey to these individuals, is that if we are to walk this out. This is more than just us showing up on Sunday morning. I had a great experience with God. God spoke to me, and then we leave out of the place and we act a fool. But it's for us to say, no, I've got to walk this thing out.
Right.
I've got to walk it out. I've got to make it part of who I am. And I'm going to give us some principles today to help us to learn or to help us to get to a place where we can walk this thing out, okay? Walk this thing out. In Galatians chapter 16, so I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. For the flesh desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit what is contrary to the flesh. They are in conflict with each other, so that they are not to do whatever. They are in conflict with each other, so that you are not to do whatever you want. Whatever you want. Remember 3 weeks ago we talked about doing things God's way, okay? But in verse 18, if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. Verse 19 through 23 is what I was telling you before, but I'm going to jump down to 24, and it says, those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passions and its desires. Since we live by the Spirit, let us keep in step, or let us walk. Let us walk. Let's keep in step with the Spirit. Let us not become conceited, provoking, or envying each other. So today, when we talk about this whole idea of I developed a streak in my life, what I'm trying to get us to see is that we need to be people who develop routines.
Yeah.
That we're people that can create routines that matter.
Yep.
We create routines in our life that matter. We create routines in our life that matter. We create routines in our life that keep us moving forward, that keep us going towards the goals in which we have inside of our life. Like if you have a goal, or if you have a mission to lose weight, eating at McDonald's every day and ordering a Big Mac is not something that is in line with a routine that you need to be setting for your life. I've told you guys this before, because Kobe Bryant has made this public. How many years was he in the NBA? His 16 or whatever, how many years he was in the NBA, he said during that time, he never ate a cheeseburger. So why? Because the routine that he got in his life matched up with where he was going in life. It matched up with his goal. It matched up with what he saw as his mission and vision for his life. So since he did that, I think it's a great example for each and every single one of us to realize that as we live our life for Jesus, you can see me a little better down. As you see me, as you realize that, is that you have to understand is that the routines that you create, they matter. Routine. This is a definition. A sequence of actions regularly followed a fixed program. You should have a fixed program for your life. And really, you have someone that has that's telling you that who hates routine. I hate it. If I can be very, very, very honest with you guys, I hate getting up and doing the same thing over and over again every single day. But routine provides stability for my life. That's why your kids have been running around the house with their heads chopped off for the last 2 weeks. Why? Because they have broken the routine that they're used to. That's why during the summer, you're about to pull out your hair because your kids, most of them, aren't in a routine. And the idea is that what school does is school gets our kids into a routine. We wake up at a certain time. We go to bed at a certain time. My kids right now are going to bed like at 1 o'clock in the morning. That's how bad I'm preparing I am. Maybe 10. Okay, 10. My wife says 10. So 10 o'clock. Still pretty bad, okay? You know, when the normal bedtime is 8:30. You know, and you can tell one of them is waking up random times in the night, and because she's going to sleep, all her sleeping schedule's off. And as we go back to school tomorrow, we're going to get back into our routine. It's going to be a wide, rude awakening for all 3 of my kids. But we're getting back into the routine. The routine of we get up in the morning, we brush our teeth, we put on our clothes, we try to make it downstairs in time, so that we can make breakfast, so that they can have some type of, they've got food in them, so they don't have to be worrying about, I'm hungry, my stomach, and then they can, go to school. I go in and pick them up, drop them off, and then come back later on, pick them up, do all the stuff that we do, getting back to the routine of life. So in order for us to really walk this out and really be the people who are led by the Spirit, here goes point 1, is that we have to understand that we have to establish new habits. In verse 16 it says this, so I walk by the Spirit and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. Yeah. So in other words, I make a decision to say that, okay, so let's get real for a moment. If you have a craving for something, it means that at one time you ate it, right? Or you experienced it. Yeah. And so what Paul is saying that because I know, let's get real for a moment. We're all not holy. We're all not, perfect individuals. Some of us have made some mistakes, and that's why even as young people, that's what we're trying to help you to not make those same mistakes. Is that we have, we've opened Pandora's box to certain areas inside of our lives, partly, just out of lack of wisdom, or I'm not really sure why, but we did it. And so we're here in this moment, and yet we can't necessarily just erase those desires, erase those things that we're going through. But what Paul says is, he goes, now you've got to establish new habits. Is that you have to understand that this thing that you have given your life to, that is not of God, or that is taking you away from God, that now it is time, because you're making a decision to follow after Jesus, and you're saying you want to be led by the Spirit, is that you have to understand that it's a season to establish new habits. Good. A season to say, I no to some things and yes to some other things. It is a season to, as you establish new habits, we have to look at the habit loop. It's this next slide, the habit loop. And let me just, it goes from goes to craving, to response, to reward. So I see something, and then all of a sudden, like maybe it's something that's shiny. And it catches my eye. And then all of a sudden, I get a craving for it. And then out of that craving for it, my body responds. My mind responds. My words respond. And as I am responding, I then am rewarded. Whether it's negative or whether it's positive, then I'm rewarded. And when we start all over. We start with 1. Then we go to 2. Then we get to 3. Then we get to 4. See, there's a cycle that is going on. That's why the Bible instructs us. Paul does another place. He goes, renew your mind. And what he's trying to get us to see is that there is this cycle that exists, and we've got to get to a place where we establish new habits And as we establish new habits, we break this cycle of a habit and we establish new habits. As we go to the next slide, it says, whenever you want to change your behavior, you can simply ask yourself, how can I make it obvious? What cues can I put inside of my life? How can I make it obvious? How can I help myself? Maybe it's putting a verse on your glass, so on your mirror in your bathroom, so that, when you wake up in the morning, you see it. It's a cue in your life. It is something that when you get to a certain place, that it reminds you of the habit that you're trying to build in your life. I was listening to someone very recently, and they said if you really want to develop the habit of going to the gym and making that part of your life, they said go to the gym. Don't wait, Miss Lynn. They said don't wait till you lose 10 pounds to reward yourself. Reward yourself after you've just come from the gym. So in other words, go to the gym, work out, do all the things you're going to do, come out, go to Starbucks, and buy you a Frappuccino latte. I don't even know if that's even right. Go buy yourself a Frappuccino, okay? And most of them be like, oh my goodness, how is that? See, because the idea is let me say the thing is you're rewarding yourself for the good behavior. And if you never receive a reward or there was a delay in the reward, it never becomes a habit. It never becomes something that you want to apply to your life. And that's the reason why negative habits are so easy to pick up, because we get a small reward. Even though it might not be the reward that we want, we get rewarded by it because the habit has just led us. Let me just give you an example. So my family went to Starbucks yesterday. That's why Starbucks is on my mind. And Nate, I was being good. My wife said, hey, you want me to get you something? We're getting treats for the girls, because the girls were at home. Me and her had gone and done some shopping and stuff. And I was like, no, you know what? I'm gonna be good, Diane. No, I don't want it. Don't get me anything. But inside, I wanted the white cake with the white frosting. You know what I'm talking about? Like you eat it and you feel like it's just like it melts in your mouth. It's like just eating sugar. It's a lemon cake. Lemon, yeah. It's so good. Now, if they can find a way to heat it with leaving the frosting the exact same way, would I be fine? Without the frosting melting, I'll be fine. But I tried to ask them, and they won't do it because the frosting melts right away. Okay, so it's cool. So I'm like, okay, cool. I did a great job. We get home, fine, still cool, right? I get home later on that evening, and wouldn't you know, out of my three kids, the one that got the frosting cake decided she wasn't going to eat all her cake. And I'm trying to be curious because I don't know, there might be a snake in there, and I don't want my family to kind of walk through a Starbucks bag and a snake pops out. I'm just trying to quality check. I'm trying to be a man and a warrior of my home. I'm trying to do that. So I open up the bag, Nate, and it's sitting right there. And the first piece on top isn't, like the cake part, it's the frosting looking at me. And I'm like, dang, frosting. And so, just do what all dads do. Almost will give me like a little piece. You just get like a little. Oh. So we went back upstairs. Still thought it was cool. An hour later, came back down. Finished it off. Why? Because I got the reward right then. And so a habit or a cue that leads to a habit or leads to a reward is going to establish a habit in my life in a negative way. But we want to make sure that we're doing this in a positive way. And here goes the questions. How can I make it obvious? Like, how can I start a cue in my life? How can I make it attractive is the second thing. How can I make it easy? How can I make it satisfying? And then if you're trying to break a habit, these are the same things that you say. You go, how can I make that thing invisible? So if there's something that I'm trying to remove from my life, how do I make it invisible? How do I make sure that it's something that doesn't come up on my radar? Second thing is, how do I make it unattractive? How do I make this unattractive? And then, how do I make it difficult instead of making it easy? How do I make it difficult for me to be attracted to that thing that I want to remove from my life? And then the fourth thing is, how do I make it satisfying? But then if I'm trying to break a habit, how do I make it unsatisfying? How do I get to a place where I never experience satisfaction with that thing? And that's by making it difficult, making it unattractive, making it invisible. And we've got to break the habits. But I also believe you can't just break habits in your life. You've also got to establish good habits.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a void in your life. And so what good habits are you going to pick up? You know, I was listening to a scientist on NPR, and this is basically what he said. He said that, he goes, we're all habit creatures. We're creatures of habit. We're creatures of habit. We are creatures who pick up habits and we live out those habits, good and bad. And he goes, you just have to learn how to make sure that you have the good habits in your life. Make sure you're living those good habits out. Make sure that you're not going down and tasting the cake so you remember what it tastes like. I had not had that cake in about 6 months, to be honest with you, because I was in a moment where every time I went to Starbucks, I bought that cake. But that cake tasted so good. You know, sometimes it's like real hard. You can tell it's been sitting out for a while. This was soft. Like, I might go there right now. You know what I mean? It was horrible. It was ugly. It was nasty. There was a fly on it. There was, you got to make it unattractive. You're trying to break that habit. The second thing that this scripture tells us in regards to if we're to walk this out, creating routines in that matter, is that you've got to understand you're your worst enemy. You are your worst enemy. Verse 17 says, for the flesh desires what is contrary to the spirit. You have a desire for it, but the Spirit of God is saying, no, that's not what I want you to be doing. You are your worst enemy. And the spirit that is contrary to the flesh, they are in conflict with each other. So that you are not to do whatever you want. You're not to do whatever you want. Because you don't belong to yourself. You know, so it gets us into this pattern, you know, and I know we're trying to develop habits, but what was the habit that I said I wanted you guys to develop last week? Habit of bringing a pen, bringing a notebook, bringing your Bible. Those three things, make sure that those three things are active inside of your life. Maybe it's not a pen, but maybe it's your phone. You're typing in notes because we're trying to lay down a record that'll stay inside of our mind. See, that really what you have to understand is that as you are typing it in or as you're writing it, you are working other senses inside of your body. And so the idea of this getting inside of you is a lot better. I mean, the percentage or the level by which it's going to get inside of you is going to be better. You know, but you are your worst enemy. Here goes 7 reasons why you are your worst enemy. The first one is you don't manage expectations. You have expectations that you're going to lose 10 pounds tomorrow. You have expectations that because you're nice to people, everybody should be nice to you. You have expectations that you should be making this amount of much more money just because you're so awesome and you're so amazing. You have you don't manage your expectations. I'm not saying don't have faith. I'm not saying don't be expectant. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying we have to manage those things as individuals. We have to manage them because if we don't manage them, we get frustrated. If we get frustrated, we get burnt out. If we get burnt out, we don't do anything. We become like everything's negative. Everything's wrong with the world. This thing's going on. That's going on. Our perspective on life gets all tore up. The second thing is you don't appreciate the small things. If you do not appreciate the small things, you are your worst enemy. Because you will have amazing things happen in your life, and then you will say, but this didn't happen. But I didn't get to eat that cupcake at my birthday party. Which I didn't get to eat that birthday cake at my birthday party. Were there cupcakes there? There were, weren't they? Because you always have cupcakes at everything, don't you? You always have cupcakes at everything. Okay? So I did not get a cupcake at my birthday party. I didn't get this at this from my wife said all this stuff about me. She said I was a great husband, but she said, but I need you to do the dishes. Man, we're doing that woman is horrible. You know, because you can't appreciate the small things. Another thing is you criticize yourself. If I would have. Why don't I? And so you become so critical and all your energy focuses on self-destruct or self-mutilation or self-abuse. I think that's the right terminology. But you become so critical of who you are. Well, I don't wear those jeans like how they wear them. Well, my hair doesn't do that and theirs does. And I'm blaming all these small things, but this can be larger things that you're getting so critical about because you're so critical about someone else's lawn. Or you're so in love with someone else's lawn that you look at your lawn and you're like, man, this is just the most horrible lawn in the world. Man, how come I can't get that one little line to go like this? And you become so critical of yourself. My grandfather, he told me a long time ago, he goes, the grass is greener on the other side. Yep. It's greener on the other side. I know a lot of us think we think it's greener. No, it actually is. You want to know why? Because you're not tending it. Because your habits aren't being produced on that lawn. So what's that mean? You've got to change your habits. You've got to change your behavior. You've got to change how you manage and how you work your lawn. The other thing is you overanalyze. I got to do this to do that. You overanalyze it. When you overanalyze stuff, your head begins to hurt. When you overanalyze it, you get tired and overwhelmed by just the process of overanalyzing. Stop overanalyzing. Stop analyzing. Stop analyzing. Stop analyzing. Stop analyzing. Next week, I'm going to talk about why you analyze too much. Next week, I'm going to talk about why you talk too much and why you're too critical and why you do this and why you do that. But that's next week, and I want to preach that right now, but I can't because I got to go stay in my time limit. Okay, the next thing you do is you prefer the easy. We are our worst enemy because we prefer it easy. We want the easy way out. We want the easy money. We want the easy process. We want it to be easy, 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 easy. How many of you guys don't want it to be easy? Yeah, that's what I thought. None of us don't. I don't want it to be easy. I want it to be easy. I want to be able to put up a sign and we fill up this whole place with 100-something people. I want it to be easy. I want it to be easy, but it's not easy. And because it's not easy, we have to come to the realization that we're going to have to work. You know what? It's not that I don't like to work. It's because I do like to work. But you know what really annoys me about stuff is having to sweat. It's that initial sweat. It's the initial feeling of sweat, coming out your pores. It's just something about it. But once it's out, I feel good. Once it started, but it's like the initial thing of so the other day we were restructuring all the Christmas stuff that we had put up. It's all somewhere here in the building, and so we had to figure out, we had to reorganize what was underneath there, and I had a helper. I don't want to call out my helper, but my helper was basically every time I would say, okay, we do this, he'd be like, ugh. If there's something wrong with the way that you're breathing, and then he looked at me one point, he goes, I'm sweating. I said, do you see I'm 3 times bigger than you, and I'm sweating, I'm getting frustrated by the sweat, and I was like, I'm sweating, but it was we were both there sweating because I think both in our minds, he was voicing his frustration, I was keeping my frustration on the inside, if we were to be honest. And as he's voicing it, I'm feeling the exact same way, but as an adult, I feel like I can't say that. But why do I feel that way? Or why do I because I want it to be easy. Because I want it to be that we say we're going to slide it in, we just slide it in. But we couldn't just slide it in because they were sitting on top of something, and every time we would push, it would get stuck, and we just had to kind of move it and push. Move it and push. We couldn't just slide it in. Because it wasn't easy. The other reason why we're our greatest enemy is because you assume. You assume. I assume that they're just going to know. I assume that it's just going to work out. I assume, and we can't assume. Right. The pastor from the church we came from, you say, you've got to inspect it. And if you inspect it, then, when you accept what you don't expect. And inspect. Accept what you don't expect. Wait, that's it right? you just got to check up on it, okay? There you go. Just check up on it, okay? You got to check up on it. And if you don't check up on it, you can't just assume that everything's going to work out. You can't just make an assumption, oh, it's going to be fine. Like, how many of you guys do that with your marriage? You can't do that with your marriage. You got to check in with your wife. You got to ask her, hey, what's up? Hey, what? This is our last thing. And this one, I'm going to need Malachi's help for this. Where's Malachi? Malachi, come up here. Malachi, come on up here. This is just really quick. It'll be the 2 more minutes or so. Kind of nail this home.
Malachi.
Malachi in the house.
Come on, give him a hand.
So, so Malachi, my last point is you got to stay on beat. You know, verse 24 says, those who belong to Christ have crucified the flesh. So in other words, they've done A. And so what it's basically saying is that, you know, and I think one of the things that we talked about before is that you don't belong to yourself, you belong to Christ. And it says, crucify the flesh with its passions and desires. Since we live by the Spirit, let us keep in step with the Spirit. So let's stay on beat. You know, I'm not the most coordinated person in the world, so this might go way out the window. Come on, give us a beat, Malachi. Yeah, give us a beat. Give something we can dance to. Give us something. Yeah, I'm gonna dance. Okay, so we've all been at the party where we all have that one friend. It don't matter what song is on. This is how they dance. Like, what are you doing? Like, do you hear the music that everybody else is hearing? And yet, as Christians, sometimes that's what we do to God. Is that God has a beat that is going, and God is saying, hey, all I want you to do is stay on beat with what I want to do in your life. Amen. Hey, all I want to do is you to stay on beat to where I'm going and to what I'm saying and how I want you to live your life. But yet we are so caught up in ourselves. And we think it's all about ourselves. That we're stuck on satisfying the desires of ourselves. You know, and these are the 4 things right here. You know, when I Googled how do you stay on beat, this is what came up. Get a metronome. Just get a metronome.
That's good.
You know, and what a metronome, well, I guess for us as Christians, would be a guide or a mentor. Do you have someone who's guiding, who's mentoring you, who's helping you, who's steering the ship of your life? And then the next thing is that you have to learn to practice. You live out those words. You live out their words. You live it out. You practice it. You put it into play inside of your life. The next thing is you let the metronome lead. Let the mentor lead. There's 2 things I put here. No dragging and no rushing. So keep up with what God's doing, but don't try to get ahead of God. Don't try to get ahead of what He's spoken inside of your life. Don't try to be like, well, He promised me a husband, and you start getting on Christian Mingle, dating everyone that you see. You know what I'm saying? You're getting ahead of God. You're getting ahead, okay? Don't get ahead of God, okay? But also, don't be left behind.
That's right.
If God is leading you to get on the website, get on the website. If God's leading you to go on a date, go on that date. You know, there's a difference. You know, I met a guy not so long ago to where I think he was just trying to make something happen. But he had like a date at 3 o'clock, had one like at 6, and had one at like at 9. And I was like, bro, you are a busy dude. He goes, yeah, dude, I'm just trying to find the right one. You know, and I'm like, whoa, you are really out there. You are leading the charge in this. And number 4, it says the metronome disappears. Eventually, the metronome should disappear. Because you know the song. Because you know what's going on. And the thing is that sometimes we get stuck on who's mentoring us. And we get so stuck on their words. And this is what We used to always say when we were leading people at the church I came from, if we start telling you how to live your life, then what we need to start doing, we also need to start paying your bills. And I ain't paying no one's bills. I'm not. I'm just saying right now, I'm not paying your bills. And so because I'm not going to pay your bills, I'm not going to tell you every single little bitty thing. Your mentor should never the mentor's voice eventually just needs to fade away. Because you are on beat, because you're not dragging, because you're not rushing, because you're living out the words that your mentor is saying. You know, and that's pretty much it. So those three things are our three components today. I told you I wasn't going to be too long. I went a little bit longer than what I wanted to, but it's establish new habits. Understand you're your worst enemy, and stay on beat. Stay on beat. Stay on beat for what God wants to do in your life. Just keep it going. Make it smooth. Keep it going. Keep it smooth. You know, and just watch what God does. Watch how God can watch over you and protect you and keep you in life circumstances. Why? Because you said, I'm choosing to stay on beat. I'm choosing to stay on beat. I'm choosing to stay on beat. Originally, when I was reading about staying on beat, they were talking about rapping. And so that's the only thing that came up. It's about rapping. And so I was going to get up here and rap, and I tried it because they say you go start with 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hello, my. See, I already knew Mario. See, Mario. But that staying on beat. Staying on beat. The beat that God is laying out for your life. Let's make this the year that we start a streak.